When a black girl saved a billionaire, the shocking truth everyone must hear. The night was alive with secrets and shadows. It was the kind of night where anything could happen, and something did. In a city that never sleeps, no one expected to witness a moment that would shake it to its core. Billionaire tycoon, Marcus Steele, known for his cold heart and sharper business mind, was plummeting through the air. His private helicopter, a sleek beast of metal and glass, was caught in a deadly spiral, flames licking at its tail. The sky lit up with fire, casting an eerie glow on the panicked faces below. And just when the world thought it was too late, a figure burst into view, a girl, no more than 16, with dark curls whipping in the wind, but she wasn't just any girl. As she leaped from the rooftop, people gasped. Her determination burned fiercer than the flames of the crashing helicopter. Her amber eyes sparkled with courage a million times over. Who was this girl, and how could she challenge the laws of gravity when grown men would tremble and fall? What drove her to that moment? It was as if destiny had been stitched into her very being, propelling her toward the billionaire while everyone else stood dumbstruck, breathless with disbelief. As she descended, the air crackled, and time slowed. Onlookers clutched their chests, the lump in their throats tightening. Was this a miracle or madness? Desperation hung heavy in the night, urging them to either cheer or cry. Who does she think she is? Murmurs rippled like wildfire. She reached for him, fingers outstretched, but would she catch him? Would their fate intertwine forever under the cruel watch of the night sky? Sweat trickled down foreheads, eyes widened in collective fear. A heartbeat echoed louder than the chaos. What if she failed? What if they simply became another statistic, hearts broken and lives lost? The clicking of cameras buzzed like angry wasps, recording every second of this incredulous act, fueling the intrigue. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as all hope seemed to hang by a thread, an unexpected roar erupted from the crowd, the hope spilling over its confines. Had she caught him? Or were they both doomed to crash and burn? As the helicopter spiraled down, their fates teetering on the brink, the world held its breath. What mysterious force bound them together, and would it be enough to save them? Amidst the chaos, that moment became a blur, time bending like the twisted remains of the helicopter. The girl, with her heart pounding like a drum and those fierce amber eyes fixed on Marcus, felt an electric charge in the air. It was as if the universe had conspired for her to leap, to reach. Her fingers grazed his wrist, the shock of contact igniting fervor as she pulled him with all her might. Below, whispers erupted from the crowd, a restless sea of voices intertwined with shouts of disbelief. "She's insane!" someone shouted. "This is madness." But there were eyes, wide and hopeful, urging her on. This wasn't a routine night, this was destiny unfolding in flames and fervor. With a final surge of adrenaline, she wrapped her arms around Marcus as they fell together, twisting through the fiery embrace of the helicopter. Shadows danced around them, but in her heart, there was no fear, only fierce determination. The ground rushed up to meet them, and as panic threatened to choke her breath, something miraculous happened. A soft, shimmering glow enveloped them, almost defying the laws of nature, as if the night itself had shifted to protect them. They struck the edge of the rooftop of a building, a heavy thud sending a shock through her body, yet somehow, she felt alive. She tumbled, rolling beneath Marcus as they hit the ground hard. The world around them exploded into chaos, the helicopter now a blazing fireball above. In dazed silence, she clung to him, her heart racing not just from the rush of the jump but also the sudden weight of their reality. "Are you okay?" she breathed out, her voice trembling. His eyes fluttered open, shock mingling with awe and something else, recognition. "You saved me," Marcus gasped, his breath shallow, each word a struggle against the burn in his chest. A million thoughts crossed his mind, but none could compare to the fierce gaze of this young girl who had seemingly come from nowhere. Just then, sirens wailed in the distance, piercing the moment, a stark reminder of the danger still lurking. The crowd surged around them like a wild tide, pressing forward as they processed the impossibility of what had just happened. Some knelt, mouths agape in disbelief, while others raised their phones skyward, a storm of flashing lights eager to capture this incredible tale. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, like every gaze was a question. Who was she? What did she want? In that moment, she understood, she had crossed a threshold, her life would never be the same. Yet there was a nagging voice in her mind, a question that pushed through the haze of adrenaline. What had she awakened? Before she could dwell on the implications, an officer broke through the crowd, eyes locked on her. "You! Step away from him!" The command lashed through the air, harsh and demanding. Whispers of suspicion filled the space between them, bulging with uncertainty and fear. Marcus looked at her, something unspoken dancing in his gaze. "I can explain," he murmured, but the camera flashes ignited suspicion, turning awe into trepidation. The crowd's energy shifted, a tangible tension biting at their heels. Was she a hero or a villain in this surreal saga? The heartbeat of the city quickened, and in that pivotal moment, they both knew everything had changed. As more officers arrived, surrounding them like hawks, the realization hit: they were now on a dangerous precipice, teetering over unforgiving currents of fame, scrutiny, and fear. And just as the first question broke through the wall of noise, sending ripples of speculation through the crowd, Marcus and the girl were thrust into a battle not just for their lives, but for their very identities. When the world began to close in, would they rise, or would they be consumed by the flames of their own making? The world around them blurred under the weight of scrutinizing eyes. Adrenaline surged through the girl as she tightened her grip on Marcus, her nails digging into his jacket. People shouted, a cacophony of confusion and accusations. The reality of what they had just survived hit hard, yet a looming dread replaced the fleeting thrill. She could feel the weight of judgment pressing down like a vice. "Get back! Move aside!" The officer barked, inching closer, his hands resting on his holstered weapon. The urgency in his voice was met with a wave of anxious murmurs from the crowd. Had they just witnessed a miracle or a crime? Marcus pulled himself upright, still breathing heavily, and the shock in his eyes morphed into defiance. "Wait!" he shouted, his voice shaky but resolute. "She saved my life." "You don't understand." But the officer's gaze didn't soften. "You think this is a game?" The tension crackled like the flames still flickering above, a ghost of the helicopter that once screamed through the night sky. The crowd shifted, pulling back and forth like an ocean tide, uncertain and wary. The girl had to think fast. She could feel the electric undercurrent of fear but also something else: determination. "I didn't mean to," she started, her voice trembling but firm. "I just knew I had to help him." Each confession felt like placing a piece of glass in her throat, difficult, painful, but unavoidable. The officer seemed to take a moment to assess her. He was torn. The crowd's hungry anticipation mirrored the girl's rapid heartbeat. But time was not on their side. Sirens wailed louder, closing in as the night swallowed more of its secrets. "What's your name?" the officer demanded, eyes narrowing. Almost instinctively, she looked to Marcus, seeking reassurance. "My name is Lila," she said, squeezing her eyes shut for the briefest second, anchoring herself against escalating chaos. The officer paused, jotting her name down on a notepad, then motioned to others. "Get the paramedics over here, and you two follow me." Before she could digest the command, heavy hands clamped around her arm. Panic surged. "Wait!" she cried, jerking away. Instinct urged her to move, to break free. All at once, she was not just a girl who had saved a life, she was now a target for scrutiny. "Please, you have to understand, Lila started again, desperation flooding her. She felt a connection to Marcus, however fleeting it had been. He shook his head, a hard look in his eyes. Lila! He exclaimed, almost pleading. You didn't do anything wrong. But the noise around them roared louder, and the officer pulled her away, their surroundings dissolving into a whirlpool of flashing lights and panicked expressions. As they made their way through the throng, Lila's heart sank further, not just from fear, but from the dawning realization that what she had done would transform her world. Her choice, though driven by instinct, could unravel into something far darker. Lila, wait. Marcus's voice cut through the din, filled with an urgency that made her pulse quicken again. Lila. His eyes were locked on hers, burning with something she didn't quite understand: urgency, fear, maybe even admiration. Time slowed as more officers arrived, their expressions a mix of confusion and authority. What did you awaken? The thought nagged her again, a relentless whisper. Then it happened. An announcement blared over the radio of one officer, sending a chill down her spine: we have a situation developing, a hostage. The word hung in the air like smoke, dense and suffocating. A hostage? Here? Lila's breath hitched in her throat. Every heartbeat echoed the question: what kind of danger had she leapt into? Just when she thought she was fighting to save a life, she was plunged into a web of treachery and darkness she never saw coming, and as the footsteps closed in and the walls of reality constricted around them, she realized the truth behind her leap might spark a much bigger fire than any she had ever anticipated. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a whirlwind of revelations. How had she gotten tangled in all of this? And more importantly, who was really in control? The hurried footsteps of the officers echoed ominously as they led Lila away from Marcus. The crowd pressed in, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination, like predators closing in on prey. Lila's heart pounded violently in her chest, drowning out the chaos. Lila! Marcus shouted again, desperation creeping into his voice. Don't go! She turned her head, just for a moment, searching for something in his gaze. But the officers tightened their grip on her, transporting her further into a storm of flashing lights and questions. A deep sense of dread washed over her, mingling with the adrenaline. Keep moving, one of the officers barked, pushing her toward a black vehicle parked beside the road. Lila dared not resist, but an icy fear gripped her. The sirens wailed, pulling at her insides like a vice. As she climbed into the back seat, she glanced out the window. The scene outside blurred past, but she could still see Marcus standing there, his features twisted with concern and anger. She could barely hear him shouting her name over the concert of chaos, but his eyes spoke volumes. Do you understand what you've done? One officer snapped, abruptly interrupting her thoughts as he slid into the seat next to her. His presence felt stifling. You could have made things worse. We have a hostage situation because of you. The statement hit her like a punch. What? How is this my fault? Let us start with why you were there, he began, but she interrupted. I was trying to save Marcus. He was about to die. Isn't that what heroes do? He stared at her for a beat before letting out an exasperated sigh. You're not a hero. You're a liability. Her stomach twisted, grappling with the accusation. She knew what she had done was right, but that didn't matter to the officers. To them, she was just an anxious girl tangled up in a dangerous game. The weight of judgment pressed onto her shoulders heavier than ever. With each passing moment, the gruesome gravity of the hostage situation began to intertwine with her thoughts like a snarl of barbed wires. Why would anyone take a hostage now? And what did it have to do with Marcus? A phone buzzed on the officer's belt, cutting through her spiraling thoughts. He answered quickly, face suddenly tense, words murmured in hushed urgency. We need backup, get the team ready. We can't take any chances. It's more serious than we thought. Lila felt like she was on the edge of a precipice, the ground crumbling beneath her. What is going on? She pleaded, gripping the seat. What do you mean serious? He ignored her, eyes fixed ahead, brows furrowing with concern. Panic spiraled inside her. Were they all in danger? Could she have just thrown herself into a deeper nightmare? Moments felt like eternity as the officer finished the call. Listen, we need to know everything that happened back there, he said, turning to face her. In his eyes, she saw something. Was it fear? Or acknowledgement? This is bigger than you. Before she could respond, another officer jumped into the driver's seat. We've got word that there's surveillance footage from a nearby building. We need to find out what we're dealing with. At that moment, a chilling realization washed over her. Whatever they were facing was far beyond her control. It wasn't just about her or Marcus anymore, it was a potential catastrophe unfolding in real time. Wait! Lila shouted suddenly, instincts driving her to speak. You have to let me help. If someone is hurt, I can. Enough. The officer snapped, raising his voice as he pressed a finger against his ear, his expression tightening further. But before she could plead her case, the vehicle jolted, a violent shake that sent her crashing against the side. They were in pursuit of someone, and the chase had just escalated. Lila's mind raced, each thought spiraling down a path riddled with uncertainty. The weight of her choices started to close in on her, threatening to suffocate her resolve. What had she unleashed? What deadly secrets awaited her on the other side of this nightmare? Suddenly, a loud crash rang out from the direction of the hostage scene. The officer's expression shifted, an urgency taking hold. What the hell was that? The vehicle screeched to a halt. Heart thundering, Lila braced for whatever was coming next. Each moment felt heavy, pregnant with possibilities. Was this all part of the fallout from her desperate leap into the unknown? And then one question burned at the forefront of her mind: what horrors still lurked in the shadows, waiting for their cue to pounce? The screeching tires came to a sudden stop, and the world outside exploded with frantic energy. The officer next to Lila shot out of the car, yelling orders as he brandished his weapon, followed closely by the driver. They vanished from her view, leaving her trapped in a cocoon of dread. The thud of footsteps echoed, but they didn't resonate like the ones from moments ago. These were hurried, chaotic, and almost panicked. She leaned forward in her seat, straining to catch a glimpse of what was unfolding just outside the vehicle's tinted windows. Lila, stay put! Came a shout, but fear clawed at her insides. She had to know. She had to do something. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to escape this vehicle and find Marcus. He was out there, trapped in a nightmare one she had inadvertently sparked. Finally unable to bear the tension, she unbuckled herself and threw open the door. The world outside slammed into her like a wall of sound and motion. The air crackled with tension, screams and shouts of the crowd mixed with the distant growls of patrol cars. She crouched low, heart racing, and dashed towards the chaos, her pulse pounding wildly in rhythm with her footsteps. Lila! Get back here! An officer barked, but she ignored him, slipping past the wreckage of police cars and the thrumming lights that cast eerie shadows on the road. Ahead, a gathering of officers encircled the area. She spotted brisk movements and saw police shields raised, forming a barrier around something or someone. Desperation pressed against her chest as she pushed her way through the thrumming crowd, finding a gap just wide enough to glimpse what lay within. There he was. Marcus. He was being held down, a wild fear in his eyes that shot straight through her. His hands were tied, and the dark silhouette of a man stood over him, whose features were obscured by the flashing lights. Lila's heart plummeted as she took in the scene, a hostage crisis, unfolding live and in color. Don't move! The officer yelled, his voice shaky yet authoritative. The man holding Marcus flinched but kept his gaze fixed on the officers as if daring them to make a move. The tension wrapped around everyone, thick and suffocating, charged with the potential for violence. Let him go! Lila shouted, without thinking, her voice slicing through the thick air. Marcus turned, his eyes wide, desperation mingling with surprise as he registered her presence. "I can help," she insisted, tears blurring her vision but not her resolve. Suddenly, a firearm discharged a deafening crack that shattered the fragile tension. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and the world slowed, the chaos spinning wildly around her as her heart dropped. Just like that, the calm before the storm evaporated into pure pandemonium. "Fall back!" An officer shouted, but it was as if everyone forgot how to move for a moment. Instinctively, she found herself instinctively inching forward, drawn by a magnetic pull toward Marcus. "Lila," Marcus shouted, his voice fraying at the edges, his fear evident. "Get back!" But before she could respond, the man holding him took a step back, tension coiling in the air around them. He looked between the officers and Marcus, sweat glistening on his brow, breathing unevenly. The desperation in the air was palpable, rising like a tide ready to swallow them whole. What happens now? In that frozen moment, certainty felt like a far-off dream. On one hand, she could run and save herself from all of this. But on the other, how could she abandon Marcus? This wasn't just a decision for her, this was a damning crossroads. And then the man spoke, voice trembling but filled with chilling intent. "If anyone takes one more step, he dies." Lila's heart sank. Standing on the edge of a precipice, she realized that her next move would decide everything. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, all eyes fixed on her, waiting for the next act in this unfolding drama. What would she choose to do next? It was time to find out if she possessed the bravery she had always thought she did, and as she locked eyes with Marcus, she could feel the weight of the moment bearing down, with one raw question echoing in her mind: was she ready to dive into the abyss, knowing the consequences could change everything they ever understood? The gun's cold barrel glinted under the chaotic lights, the man's grip unsteady but menacing. Lila could feel the tremors of panic rippling through the crowd, everyone frozen, hearts pounding, breaths held. They were all waiting on her, waiting for a sign, a signal, anything. "Lila," Marcus's voice cracked, breaking through the haze of fear that enveloped her. "Please, don't." But how could she? How could she walk away knowing he was there, tied up, at the mercy of this desperate stranger? The world around them felt like it was shrinking, just the two of them, locked in this moment, her heart crashing against her ribs like a wild bird trapped in a cage. Without thinking, she took a step forward, feeling the weight of the crowd's gaze pierce through her. "Please, just let him go," she begged, her voice trembling yet steady, reinforced by sheer will. "Back off," he shouted, eyes darting. Sweat pooled on his brow, and she could see the inner turmoil raging in his mind. This wasn't just about the hostages, it was about survival, desperation clawing at his sanity. There was a look of madness in his eyes, the kind that came from a place of complete loss of control, loss of hope. "Let us not do anything we'll regret," she pleaded, fingers trembling against the doorframe, searching for some semblance of courage. "Regret?" He laughed, a sharp sound that sliced through the deafening silence. "Regret is for the weak. You don't understand what I've lost." Lila's heart sank deeper. This wasn't just a random act of violence. This man was fighting his own battle, one buried deep within. She had to reach him, she had to make him see beyond the anger and pain. "Tell me what you want," she shouted, forcing the words to emerge with all the power she could muster. "You can have anything. Just let him go." His breath hitched, and for a flicker of a moment, uncertainty flashed in his eyes. Did she really mean it? Could she handle the fallout of his choices, or was she merely digging a deeper grave? But then another voice rang out. A female officer took a step forward, determination in her stance. "Stay back," she warned, but her words held little sway, the tension thickening into an almost tangible force. "No. Don't," Lila yelled, eyes flicking between the officer and the man. Each alive with a different kind of desperation. She had to intervene, she had to convince him. The stakes were higher than just the life of Marcus. They were teetering on the edge of violence and hope. The man looked out at the assembled officers, then back at Marcus, biting his lip. "I didn't want it to come to this," he muttered, voice strained. "But I have to make them listen." "Listen to what?" Lila urged, stepping closer. "Share your pain. Let us understand." The crowd was still, even the officers tensed, feeling the shift in energy. Suddenly, something in him cracked. His grip loosened off the gun momentarily. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything." He spat, and those words hit her like a punch. But maybe it was time to expose her own truth, to confront the shared wounds we all carry. "I do know loss. I lost someone I love too," Lila confessed, her voice breaking. "And every day feels like a battle." She could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes, the connection, the understanding. Time felt suspended as they stood there, eyes locked, waiting to see if reality would shift. "Lila, please, go back," Marcus exclaimed, desperation flooding his tone, but she couldn't falter now. She wouldn't let fear dictate this moment, and just when it seemed they were reaching him, the crack of another gunshot echoed through the air, a terrifying reminder of how quickly everything could escalate. Heads turned in chaotic confusion. The man's expression twisted in rage and fear, losing that fleeting connection. In the chaos that followed, Lila could only think one thing: how one choice, one moment, could shatter lives forever. "Get down!" an officer shouted. And all at once, the world around them erupted into a frenzy of violence, chaos reigning as terror swallowed the moment whole. As she crouched, heart hammering, Lila knew they had crossed a line yet again, and the question remained: how could she bring Marcus back from the brink when everything threatened to collapse? And amid the noise, an even darker thought began to unfold: what if this was all just the beginning? The shot rang out like a thunderclap, startling the spectators. Lila's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins, urging her to move, to do something. But her body betrayed her, pinning her in place as she caught a glimpse of the man with the gun, his eyes wide with terror. "Get away from him!" Marcus shouted, squirming against his bindings, fighting for freedom. But the moment hung heavy, suffocating her thoughts, drowning out his cries. The chaotic scene played out like a nightmare. Officers shouted, a cacophony of voices colliding, all while the escaped bullet thudded sickeningly into a nearby wall. A woman gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, while others ducked instinctively, seeking refuge from an unseen enemy. "Calm down!" the officer yelled again, attempting to regain control. But how could anyone remain calm in a storm of panic? Everything seemed to collapse inward, the world narrowing to a singular focus: the man with the gun. "Listen to me." Lila tried again, her voice barely escaping past the pounding in her ears. "There's a way through this. We can talk about it." His grip tightened on the weapon, knuckles white. "You think talking matters? Nothing matters. I'm done." That denial struck a chord deep within her. How many people had dismissed her pain, her fears? "Please," she breathed, each word now a lifeline dangling in the abyss. "You're more than this moment. We can find a way to your truth." But the rage in his eyes only intensified, morphing into desperation. He swung the gun, pointing it straight at Marcus, who froze on the ground. "You think I'm afraid? You think I care about consequences? No. No. Don't you dare." Lila's lungs felt like they'd been filled with lead. The world twisted, blurring around her as the frantic gaze of the crowd pulsed in and out of focus. "You still have a choice." "She's right." A voice piped up from the crowd, an old man with a shock of gray hair. "You are not alone, son. Let them help you." For a moment, it seemed the man considered the words. The gun drooped slightly, the taut tension releasing just, if barely. She felt a flicker of hope light up in her chest. But then the spell broke. A second shot split the air, shattering the fragile piece. Lila gasped as the man's expression contorted, swamped by madness once again. "Back off!" he roared, shifting his anger from the officers back to her. "You don't know what I can do." A flurry of movement erupted around her. Officers surged forward, attempting to subdue him, despite the heightened stakes. Lila's heart raced, everything seemed to happen in slow motion. She saw a flash, a glimpse of steel, an officer's taser aimed straight for the man. Just as he registered movement, his finger squeezed the trigger, and another shot thundered through the air. This time, she couldn't tell who it was aimed at. Panic surged in her chest as her breath caught. "No!" she shrieked, lunging forward, desperate to protect Marcus, to shield him from consequences he didn't deserve. The noise escalated, people screamed, and chaos reignited. Lila felt her feet moving before her mind caught up. Time was unraveling. She reached for the man, her hand outstretched, trembling but determined. "Please. Don't do this. You can still change." But would her reach be enough? Would he choose redemption over destruction, or was this wound too deep to heal? Then she saw it, the unmistakable flash of a badge, a figure breaking from the shadows, an officer, a friend of Marcus's that she recognized. He ran faster than she could blink, his intent clear, but would anyone see her desperate attempt to avert disaster in time? As she caught the man's wild gaze one last time, she realized how thin the line was between saving Marcus and losing him forever. The echo of violence rang so loudly in her ears, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next would send shockwaves through every soul present. What choice would the man make, and what would be the cost of Lila's plea? Just as the crowd held its breath, the unrevealed future loomed ominously ahead, waiting to unfold. The air shifted, charged with a tension that felt almost electric. Lila felt the skin on her arms crawl as the scene around her spun out of control. She couldn't fathom the weight of the moment, every second stretching into infinity, making her feel like she was holding her breath underwater. "Down! Everyone down!" An officer barked as he drew his weapon, tension palpable in his grip. She knew they were trying to contain the chaos, but each command felt like a countdown to catastrophe. "Don't move!" the man with the gun roared, fear twisting his once normal features. His wild eyes darted back and forth, searching, seizing on every flicker of movement. It was clear then that he didn't truly see them, just shadows waiting to bear down on him. "I'm here," Lila said slowly, grounding herself in the moment. "Look at me." It was a desperate gamble, but she felt its rightness, a chance to reach through the madness and connect. "You don't have to do this. We're afraid, too. We want to help." Just as the frail thread of hope began to tug at the man's heart, an ear-splitting crack echoed across the plaza. A third shot rang out, this one aimed high, a warning shot fired by the officer racing toward the chaos. The loud bang shattered the fragile calm, sending people scrambling for cover, screams erupting from the crowd. Fear devolved into pandemonium. Lila's heart sank. "No! No! We can't let this escalate." The shout tore from her throat, a raw plea drowning in the sound of chaos. She lunged again, pressing forward, her heart thundering in her chest as she blocked the officer's path, desperation fueling her every step. "Stop! You'll just make it worse," she cried, every word a frantic attempt to regain control of this violent spiral. The man with the gun lurched back, his posture flickering between defiantly aggressive and cripplingly vulnerable. He squeezed the trigger again, the gun fired in a deafening roar, but this time it was aimed upward, ricocheting off stone and sending debris flying. "Enough!" the officer shouted, trying to close the distance, but the man reacted violently, swinging the gun in his direction. Time seemingly fractured, everything slowed, and Lila watched the horror unfold like a tragic play. "Marcus!" she shouted, searching for him amidst the chaos. He was still on the ground, struggling against his bonds, his eyes wide, pleading. She felt an aching pull. She needed him free, needed him safe. But every second slipped like sand through her fingers. "You have to trust me, just keep your head down." The officer, sensing the gravity of the situation, diverted his attention toward the crowd, his voice booming. "Back away. Evacuate the area. Move now." Lila turned, her breath hitching. She could sense panic spreading like wildfire. The people were fleeing, pushing her back as they dispersed in all directions. It was a kaleidoscope of fear and confusion, and she stood in the center of it, powerless yet resolute. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement. A child, lost in the frenzy, dashing toward the man with the gun, an innocent soul unaware of the peril surrounding them. Lila's heart seized. "Get down!" She screamed, but the child didn't hear her over the chaos. The man with the gun noticed too, a flash of terror igniting once more. Everything froze again, each heartbeat drumming painfully slow as it hit her. She had to act, and fast. "Stop!" she yelled, voice breaking. "Don't hurt him. It's not worth it." Every ounce of her being surged forward, urging him to remember his humanity just long enough to protect the child. The whole crowd had become a witness to this moment. A misunderstanding could bring unthinkable tragedy. Lila reached deep within her, hoping to draw on any glimmer of compassion hidden beneath the man's fear. Desperation clawed at her throat. Please, for their sake. But would her voice be enough? Would a bond amidst the madness hold strong? The question hung in the air like the tension in a barely drawn bowstring. With every ounce of hope wavering, Lila braced herself for what could come next. Would her plea ignite a spark of clarity? Or drown them all in darkness? "Get down." The words tore from Lila's lips like the frayed edges of panic, her voice piercing the frantic din. She felt the weight of 100 terrified gazes fixed on her, even as the chaos threatened to swallow them whole. The child was darting closer, oblivious to the danger, and it stirred something deep within her, a fierce, primal urgency. She lunged forward, cutting through the sea of bodies, each one pressing against her in morbid cohesion. She had a single objective now, a singular purpose: save that child. The man with the gun shifted, his shoulders trembling as he struggled to steady himself. A thin sheen of sweat glistened on his forehead, mingled with the desperation in his eyes. He looked like a cornered animal, and at that moment, Lila felt a flicker of understanding. His fear mirrored her own. They were all trapped in this nightmare, shadows converging in a fragile web of humanity. "Listen. Please listen." She shouted again, her voice rising above the clamor. "It's a child. You don't want to hurt anyone." She felt as if time had split in two, the one where chaos took dominion and the other, where maybe, just maybe, her words could reach him. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. The child paused, turning just long enough to look back at the wild scene unfolding, the fear, the gun, the desperation, barely understanding the gravity of it all. Lila's heart raced. The innocence of that little face shone like a beacon in the storm, and she narrowed her focus on the man with the gun. "Put it down," she begged, her heart hammering in her chest like a desperate drum. In that moment, she wasn't just pleading for the child's safety, she was fighting for the man standing before her, wrestling with his demons. "You can end this. Please, stop while you still can." A fleeting moment of clarity flickered across the man's face, and she seized it, drawing closer, her hands outstretched. His gun lowered slightly, uncertainty flickering beneath layers of fear and rage. Hope surged within her, intoxicating and terrifying all at once. But suddenly, another voice cut through the tension like a knife, a shout from above, shrill and panicked. "Get back! Get away from him!" It was another officer, charging forward, unaware that his actions could dismantle the fragile bond Lila had forged. She could see it in the man's eyes, the wildness returning, pulling him back toward the abyss. "Please," Lila breathed, feeling her voice crack with the weight of their collective despair. "Don't ruin this. We have a chance." In that instant, the child took another step forward. Lila felt time stretch again as every eye caught the movement, hearts collectively racing. The officer drew closer, aiming his weapon at the man, hand steady yet tense. "Drop the gun, or I will shoot." The threat lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. Fear radiated from the crowd like a living organism, constricting the space around them. Lila knew the stakes were higher than the gun in the man's hands. They were teetering on the edge of catastrophe. A single action could tip the balance from hope to horror. "Do you really want the blood of a child on your hands?" Lila shouted, her heart pounding as she took another step forward, the chaos swirling around her. "You can stop this now. For everyone's sake." His gaze met hers, a tumult of emotion playing across his face: confusion, fear, maybe even a hint of doubt. She had seen that flicker before. It was the glimmer of a soul trapped and desperate, a soul desperate for understanding, but before she could move again, the unspeakable happened. A gunshot rang out loud, sickening. Time shattered, the crowd erupted again, screaming in horror. Panic surged like a tidal wave, throwing Lila backward. Her breath caught in her throat as she looked around, wild with dread. "Marcus!" she called, but the chaos swallowed her voice. Her heart raced as she struggled to regain her footing. A stark realization dawned: if everything fell apart now, if another shot was fired, there would be no heroes, only victims, lost amidst the chaos. She locked her eyes onto the man, one last plea forming in her mind. Please, but would her final words find their mark? In this moment teetering on annihilation, was there still time to mend the frayed threads of humanity? The crowd's roar drowned out almost everything but the painful thrum of hope that echoed within her, begging to be heard. And then, the ground beneath her trembled as another shot reverberated through the air, leaving only one question hanging like a ghost: would they all survive this reckoning, or fall into darkness together? The chaos erupted into a frenzy of screams. Confusion rippled across the crowd, and with each heartbeat, Lila felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. She could hardly breathe. But there he was, Marcus, her connection in this nightmare. "Marcus!" she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat as she sought him in the turmoil. Her heart raced. "Stay down." She saw him struggling against his bonds, panic dancing in his eyes like a wild flame. He couldn't be hurt, he couldn't be taken from her now. Lila stepped forward instinctively, ready to shield him at any cost, but in that moment, she realized something powerful, a spark igniting inside her. Maybe this was the moment where everything shifted. Maybe she could be the change, the lifeline they all needed, even if it felt impossible. "Stop!" she cried again, tears tracing down her cheeks as she forced the words through a tremble. "You don't have to do this. Please, listen to me." Her voice stood firm against the suffocating panic around them. The man with the gun faltered, a flicker of hesitation breaking through the rage in his eyes. For a heartbeat, the air around them shifted. "Put the gun down," she breathed, every ounce of hope swirling with a reckless urgency. "You're stronger than this moment. Don't add to the pain, let us help you. We can talk about it." His eyes danced from her to Marcus and flickered with uncertainty. "You don't understand." He spat, but even as the words spilled from his lips, she saw the conflict etched deep within him, a battle of desperation colliding with a hidden dignity, a yearning to be acknowledged beyond the pain. With every ounce of courage, she pressed on. "We all carry wounds. If you let him go, I can help you. You don't have to be alone." The chaos faded slightly, ears straining to catch the rising tension between them, the air heavy with unspoken potential. She sensed a shift, felt it in his flaring nostrils, in the tightening of his grip on the weapon, wavering now like a flickering candlelight. She took a single step forward, desperate to bridge the distance, determined to reach him. Then came that deafening shot again, piercing the night air like a knife through flesh. The earth below her trembled, and the screams drowned her out. No! Her heart shattered at the thought of losing everything. Marcus's terrified eyes met hers, filled with a mix of pleading and assurance. "Lila, you need to get out of here," he shouted, the tension raw and shocking. But she couldn't leave him behind. Then, from the depths of the chaos, a figure emerged, the officer she recognized from earlier. He rushed toward the man holding the gun, shouting commands, but the delicate balance teetered. The man's eyes flared with rage, the fear morphing into violence once more. Seconds felt like years, and fear gripped Lila like a hand around her throat. "Lila!" Marcus yelled, shaking off his bonds. "Get back!" But she pressed forward, fueled by an overwhelming instinct. She wouldn't allow this to escalate further, collapsing underneath the weight of fear. "Listen to me," she begged, eyes locked onto the man who held so many lives at risk. "There's still hope. You can stop this." Suddenly, everything seemed to surge ahead in hyperspeed. In an impulsive moment, the man stumbled, the gun wavering. "Don't come any closer," he shouted, the edge of panic and uncertainty fraying his bravado. "Let him go," Lila yelled, stepping closer but keeping her hands visible. "It's not worth it." In the tumult, she saw a glimmer of humanity shining through his turmoil. If only she could hold on to it. Every instinct urged her forward as she fought to break the barrier of despair standing between them. "People care. We can help you." She threw her heart into those words, the blend of determination and compassion igniting a spark. And just then, the barrier cracked. For one frail second, the man tightened his grip around the gun, hesitated, and she could feel it. It was happening. She wasn't just reaching for him, she was challenging his pain, bringing light into the darkness that had swallowed him whole. But then a voice cried out again, the frantic urgency of the officers, and in that instant, the man retreated. "Get back! Everyone get down!" The wave of panic surged back into the chaos as he lost sight of the light she held out. "Please!" Lila cried, doubling down, her voice raw with emotion. "You don't have to let your pain define you. You can choose to end this today." Everything hung in the balance. Time slowed to a standstill as the onlookers held their breath. The man's wild eyes danced over the crowd, processing fear, anger, but beneath it all that flicker of hope. It surged again. With a sudden crack, the gun fell from his hands, clattering to the ground. Gasps erupted around them, and time accelerated back to life. With wild grace, the officers charged forward, securing the man just as tears of relief streamed down Lila's face. "You did it!" she screamed, relaying joy even through her lingering fear. In that moment, she ran to Marcus, who was finally being released. Their eyes locked, and the world faded around them. No more chaos. No more fear. Just two hearts finding their place amid the storm, aching and healing together. As they stood still, embracing the reality of their survival, they learned something miraculous. Even in the ashes of despair, hope could spark anew. "Thank you," Marcus whispered, and those simple words hung in the air like a solemn promise between them. It was a beginning, an uncharted path filled with possibility. They would navigate it together, and as the crowd surged around them, filled with onlookers, stories to share, and lives interwoven, there was a palpable feeling that something beautiful had emerged from the darkness. Lila smiled, a warmth spreading inside her, knowing they would face tomorrow, whatever it brought. They had survived the storm, and now, rising together from the ashes, they were ready to embrace the dawn. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for powerful stories and unforgettable characters. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep us going strong. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this explosive conclusion. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this amazing ending. Your engagement means everything to us. Let's build this community together.